Some, can you remind me how to pronounce your name?
Sumedh.
Sumedh, thank you, Sumedh. And hi, everyone. And I also want to acknowledge that I'm joining from unceded territories here in BC of the Coast Salish peoples. And thank you. I am happy that so many of you are able to join us today. Kelly, my co-presenter, is not currently on the call, but we hope Kelly will join soon. So the core team that made up the study, the research team that of the study that you've looked at consists of 2 researchers and 4 patient partners. As you see here on screen, the 4 patient partners were Shannon McQuitty, Kelly English, Alison Owens, and Annette McKinnon, and Dr. Linda Lee was another researcher. Alison Owens actually is a researcher in her own right, and knowledge translation expert. Our work to develop the patient engagement in research scale is divided across 3 papers. From the top, paper 1 reports on our development of a conceptual framework that forms the concepts underlying the PEIRS. In paper 2, we developed a 37-item version of the PEIRS, which is the patient engagement in research scale. And in paper 3 at the bottom, we refined the PEIRS to a 22-item version, which is valid and reliable. Our main focus today is on the middle paper, but I also touch on the top and bottom paper. The rationale for creating the PEIRS was to move beyond reflective stories. So there were a lot of reflective stories, but we wanted to go to where we can start testing and identifying effective methods for meaningful engagement, to improve the quality of partnerships on individual research projects, the quality of partnerships across research networks, and to assess correlation between research outcomes and the quality of patient-partner engagement. At the time of starting this work, meaningful engagement in research was being talked about and published on, but it was never comprehensively defined as a concept. We recognized that we needed to define it in order to be able to develop a tool to measure it. In 2017, we published a conceptual framework consisting of 8 key themes and a definition for meaningful patient engagement in research. This framework was based on the experiences of 18 patient partners gathered through interviews and supplemented with a review of published research related to the topic. Specifically, the themes of the patient engagement in research framework, PEIR framework for short, defines patient engagement in research from the patient perspective, where starting from the top, the green balloon, we see procedural requirements, and going clockwise, convenience, contributions, support, team interaction, research environment, feel valid, and benefits. Each of these themes have their own description. But we define the overarching concept of meaningful patient engagement in research as the engagement of patients and family caregivers in planned, supported, valued, and conducted within a positive research environment, with individuals perceiving it as rewarding and productive experience. Fast forward to 2018, we published paper 2 on the 37-item version of PEIRS questionnaire from a mixed methods study. This is the main paper we're discussing today. And so would like to go on into it. And here you see on the screen all the different authors. So this is a busy slide that summarizes our methods in figure 1 of the paper. The paper presents a 3-phase study involving item generation, item selection, and questionnaire pilot testing or questionnaire pre-testing. I will break the phases down over the next few slides with a focus on the results. We developed the PEER framework using a thematic analysis of textual data from the interviews and the published studies from the review. We first identified the most basic themes. So the outer part of this web or mesh diagram. And so we identified those basic themes, then group those basic themes into organizing themes. And then the organizing themes combined to reflect the global theme of meaningful patient engagement in research. And so to form the items of the PEIRS questionnaire, we went back to the basic themes that we got from the textual data, the interviews and the reviews, and restructure them into 120 item statements for the PEIRS questionnaire. And so sometimes I will say items, sometimes I will say statements, but they're the same thing. So we structure those basic themes, the outer blue rectangles, into 120 statements for the PEIRS. To select items for the PEIRS questionnaire, we conducted an eDelphi survey consensus building process on the 120 statements with 12 patient partners from across Canada. Over the 3 rounds, participants independently rated the importance of each item and provided comments to refine the items. Between round 2 and 3, you'll see we had a discussion between participants. It was facilitated to form a shared understanding of the problems in the items. Where you see the black stars, that's where our team, our research team usually met to discuss the emerging findings and the data that was coming in from the eDelphi process. These meetings were vital to interpret the participants' comments and address them from a patient partner perspective. This process resulted in 43 items for the provisional questionnaire. The takeaway from this slide, it's another busy slide, is that we followed a passed, partial passed, and failed selection system based on participants' rating of the items paired with their comments to decide on the items to keep. So participants' comments helped us to remove redundancy and to improve the comprehension of the items. So to improve how well the items would be understood by those completing it. We then tested the provisional questionnaire using an approach called cognitive testing or cognitive interviewing, in which we observe patient partners completing the PEIRS and ask them questions to identify any problems within each item. Prior to beginning the interviews, our team developed an interview guide using what's called the Questionnaire Appraisal system to review the 43 items and to determine possible problems to probe within the 5 categories of questionnaire problems. And so the 5 categories of questionnaire problems are shown here, and they are from the cognitive aspects of survey methodology. So are the questions understandable? So comprehension. Are people actually able to remember what they need to remember to be able to respond to the questions? So information retrieval. Are they able to grade their thoughts or feelings? So judgment estimation, the reporting, is this the questionnaire providing the right response scale and the overall structure of the scale. So the logical and structure of the scale. And so we identified potential problems in 35 items. This table is quite small and is also a busy table, but I want to draw your attention to the second to last row. And so here, this is an example of what we did to address one item. The item says, I had a clear understanding of my role. And we see here that 2 persons identified problems with it. And then we go on to see that the problems that persons were saying were that it's too similar to another item. And going further on, we see that the reference period was challenging. So persons were only interpreting it as being at the beginning of a project. And so this caused some issues around the understanding of the item, and in terms of the structure of the scale, it's a duplication of another item. And so we removed it because the other item was understandable and covered that key concept that we wanted to cover in the questionnaire. Moving on to the next slide, we see here that paper 2 resulted in the 35 item PEIRS questionnaire, which has face validation and content validation for assessing the degree of meaningful patient engagement in research. So each item has a 5-point Likert scale, so strongly disagree to strongly agree. It has 7 domains for that covers the 8 themes. Persons are asked to think about your experience as a patient partner in a particular project, and it would likely take around 10 to 15 minutes to complete. And the final scores range from 0 to 100, with 100 being a higher degree of meaningful patient engagement, and it's free to access. So the reason why there are 7 domains instead of 8, which is 1-to-1 for each of the themes, is that we combine 2 themes here, research environment and team interaction, into one theme just based on our results. And so here we have into one domain. So here we have that new domain, which is called team environment and interaction. So for the last paper, users had told us that the PEIRS could be shorter. We also needed to demonstrate the PEIRS scores as a valid and reliable measure. Therefore, we sought to short the PEIRS to its most essential items and to evaluate its measurement properties. Participants were surveyed online through email or surveyed in person using the PEIRS. 119 persons participated. 53 participated twice between 2 and 13 days for reliability testing of the PEIRS scores. 99 of these participants were from Canada. They were mainly female, mainly younger than 65 years, and had a post-secondary education. We tested if each participant's score could be combined into a single PEIRS score. Our analysis resulted in the reduction of the PEIRS to 22-item questionnaire. This was mainly due to low correlations between items. So items were too similar to form, well, items were too different to form one score, or some very high correlations between items, meaning items were too similar, so they were redundant. Our results showed response to all items can be combined to form a single PEIRS scores for each person that explains most of the participants' experience in a research project around related to meaningful engagement. We also found that the PEIRS scores have good reliability. To support the interpretation of the PEIRS, at the bottom of this table, you will see we found statistical significant differences in PEIRS scores for participants who provided different ratings of their overall degree of meaningful patient engagement in research using a single item measure. And so this resulted in the, as I said a slide back, the 22-item PEIRS, which has a similar makeup to the previous version. It has a 5-point Likert scale, 7 sections. It covers all 8 themes. It uses the same sort of structure, and when we tested, it takes between 3 to 7 minutes to complete. The final scores range from 0 to 100, with 100 higher scores meaning greater degree of meaningful engagement, and it's free to access. So you can access it by contacting me. And so this slide here highlights that the total PEIRS scores can vary between 0 and 100, with higher scores meaning greater meaningfulness. And so here we see 4 different ranges of PEIRS total scores. Starting from the top, we see extremely meaningful, which covers PEIRS scores between 92 to 100, very meaningful, between 82.7 to 92, moderately meaningful, which is over 70.1, and below 70.1 percentile score, we have low meaningful. Low degree of meaningful engagement indicates important deficits in patient partners' experience of meaningful engagement, and so it highlights where there is opportunity for improvement in patient engagement experience, and where you can put attention to quality improvement in how you go about your strategy of patient engagement. And so we have similar cut points at the domain level, so those 7 domains. And so from the raw scores in the domains, we see here are the cut points in the far right column. And in the middle column, we see the number of items in each domain. And so one might want to specifically look at which domains are the experiences of patient partners kind of low, or where there are challenges, where their attention should be placed to improve the experience of meaningful patient engagement on a particular project, for example. And so we also developed this infographic using what's called rash analysis, which is a modern psychometric theory. And so what I mean by modern psychometric theory, it's a modern way of looking at the validation of a scale and to testing its measurement properties. And so we mapped the 22 items on 3 levels of meaningful engagement: the foundational level at the bottom, the intermediate, and the advanced level of meaningful engagement. So patient partners must strongly agree with an item to achieve its level. This can be useful when planning and quality improvement by determining certain key elements of meaningful engagement where each element is on sort of the levels of engagement. So you might find, for example, looking at the very top advanced level of engagement, that it's the most difficult item to achieve is to offer where patient partners strongly agrees that they are offered sufficient recognition for their contribution. And so if you want to target advanced levels of engagement, it would be a good idea to look at those items and to target those items or those elements of engagement. Whereas at the bottom, those elements are usually in the foundational engagement are easier to achieve or more often reported as strongly agreed with based on the experience of patient partners. And so here, these are all of the 22 items of the PEIRS, and they're showed in their minimum level at which they must be strongly agreed with. For example, here in the bronze or the foundational level, we have opportunities to express one's views. In the intermediate level, we have received sufficient project updates. And in the advanced level, we have recognitions of one's contributions. And so the takeaway here in conclusion is that the PEIRS is a valid and reliable tool for assessing the degree of meaningful patient engagement in research from a patient partner or meaningful engagement of patient partner in research. And it enables standard assessment of patient and family caregiver engagement in research across various contexts. I don't know if Kelly was able to join us.
Not yet. She replied to my email and said, yeah, see you then. I don't know if she got a wrong time, but hopefully she will be able to join. I responded to her.
Okay, and so Kelly was gonna touch on this photo as well. And this was when we presented. Kelly, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. I had 11 o'clock written down.
Okay. Sure. Kelly, did you want to talk a bit about this slide? So Kelly is a patient partner on the research project.
This slide was done at the American College of Rheumatology conference, and it was Clayon and myself and Shannon, who is another member of our team, and Linda Lee, who at that point was in charge of overseeing the whole project to a certain point, although it was Clayon's project. And at this point, I think that this really shows how much involvement there was with patients. If you're not getting involved with your patients, you're missing out on a whole lot of things. The patients are really good at disseminating your information, just toning down your language to make it readable for people. And although you may think that you're doing really well, it could be that when you actually use the scale to talk to be evaluated, you might find that there are some areas that don't quite fit in there. I just wanted to say, sort of to sum up what I had to say, was that we took the patient engagement survey ourselves after we had finished this project. It was several years in the making. And what we found was that Clayon started right from the beginning with us, right before we went to ethics. So we were really involved in it. And that was really important, that we didn't just feel like we were tokenism. That was a word that kept coming up and up, token. So we started off right from the beginning. We helped to make the words for ethics readable and understandable to all ages, even though it was going to ethics, I know, but making it clear. We went over the papers on past research, and we helped to develop the themes that needed to be done. Clayon was really careful to use our time wisely, scheduling meetings, and if we couldn't come, he would phone us individually, fill us in on what would happen, and get our opinion. And that was really important to those of us with a chronic illness. Remuneration was given in the form of gift cards and honorariums, so that part of the scale was filled, and our opinions were really valued, which to me was really important. We were involved in both the dissemination, the lay summaries, and as you can tell, we were really involved in the presentations. I think pretty much all of us had a chance to present at some point, and that is a picture of myself presenting. It sort of wrapped everything up for us. Okay, Clayon?
Yes, that wraps it up. Thank you so much, and thank you for it was such an honor working with the entire team, and it was a great experience. And we, as Kelly said, it was a number of years, I believe 4 to 5 years, that we worked on this project together. And so, and really, it was driven from the patient partner perspective. It couldn't have been done without kind of checking in and having those real deep discussions that we had through our many meetings.
It was amazing to see how many people, how many differing opinions there were on some of our terms as to what it meant. We had a great deal of discussion on that.
Yeah, sometimes even one word was a challenge to kind of decide which word to use. And so to wrap up, I also want to acknowledge the funding support that I got during my postdoctoral fellowship to do this work. And also the recruitment support and the graphics. I got support with the graphics, and another researcher, Dr. Jenny Lees, was very instrumental in doing the interviews that we used to create the themes for the PEIRS framework. And so thank you very much. To get access to the PEIRS, you can email us as peirscale@gmail.com. And that's it. Thank you so much. And I look forward to our discussion.